Hey everyone, Mr. Harvey here. Let's start our lecture on the English Reformation. So, we're still in chapter 3, and so far we've been focusing on the Protestant Reformation within the HRE, within Germany. We've been focusing on this German Reformation, Martin Luther, Lutheranism, and kind of what's been going down there. We're going to switch gears a little bit right now, and we're going to be focusing on the English Reformation. All right, Martin Luther's kind of movement against the Catholic Church is going to spread to England. All right. And we're gonna talk about what goes on there. Okay, so we are in the English Reformation, and today we're gonna be talking about the Tudor family. All right, really, really, really important. In this class, ladies and gentlemen, I've kind of mentioned some important families that we need to know, but there are many families that we're gonna need to know. The Tudors are one such family, right? We're gonna need to know the Tudors, the Stuarts, the Valois family, the Bourbon family, the Habsburg family, the Romanov family, the Hohenzollern family, right? Many families that we need to know, and we're going to break each one down. We have plenty of time to learn them, okay? The Tudors are really, really, really important for us to know. Also note, ladies and gentlemen, that this is the English Reformation. I'm not calling this like the British Reformation or, the UK Reformation, okay? We don't have a UK yet. We don't have a United Kingdom yet, all right? We're focusing on the country of England within that island territory that will eventually become the United Kingdom of Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales, and England. Okay, but it's not there yet. All right, here we go. All right, now really important for us to note, ladies and gentlemen, that England has some history of pushing back against the crown. I'm going to be talking about England more in depth as we discuss England. They kind of do things differently, all right? They view themselves as a little bit separate from other Europeans, all right? They're an island nation, separate from the continent, and we're gonna, as we go throughout the history, talk about some things that are unique to England and eventually the United Kingdom, okay? But one thing that is unique amongst England, okay, is they've had a little bit of a history of maintaining their rights, pushing back against the papacy, pushing back against the Pope, pushing back against the Catholic Church, all right? One instant is Edward I, Edward the Longshanks, okay? And he kind of like Philip the Fair, but not on the level of Philip the Fair, is going to kind of push back against the right of Philip, of Boniface having that sole right to tax the clergy. Okay, Edward's going to, push back against the Catholic Church on that issue, okay? Wycliffe, okay, we talked about him in his group of lollards, all right? Really starting a movement and pushing back against the Catholic Church on various issues such as transubstantiation, papal infallibility, right? Pushing back against the Catholic Church, all right? William Tyndale, all right? He's going to translate the Bible into English, and he's going to be executed for doing so. Well, that's, definitely, a big challenge to the Catholic Church because, Bibles were previously printed only in Latin, okay? And by him publishing it in the vernacular so more people could read what was in the Bible, right? That's definitely a major thing, for Protestantism, because there's some things in the Bible that the Catholic Church doesn't necessarily want the everyday average person during this time to read, right? Such as there is only 2 sacraments mentioned in the Bible. There's only there's no Pope mentioned in the Bible. So that's again, an illustration, an example of England pushing back against the Catholic Church. And we're going to see, ladies and gentlemen, the ultimate kind of challenge to the church is when Henry VIII creates his own Anglican Church and Church of England. All right, so we are going to be talking about the Tudors today, ladies and gentlemen. We need to know the major Tudor monarchs, okay, Tudor dynasty, within this family. All right, so here we go. Let's make sure we know these monarchs, and you need to memorize them. Okay, it's so handy. All right, on an SAQ, on a DBQ, on an LEQ to be able to name drop. To be able to say, Elizabeth I, to be able to say Mary. Okay, to be able to say Edward VI. All right, to be able to list these monarchs. All right, so let's make sure we know them in order. And I'm going to go through each major monarch. Okay. The first Tudor that we need to know, okay, in this line within the family, this line of monarchs is Henry. What's that? What's this Roman numeral? We need to practice our Roman numerals. The 7th, okay, very important. Henry the 7th. Then we have Henry VIII, okay, Edward the 6th. Make sure we're familiar with these Roman numerals. Again, very important. Mary the 1st, Elizabeth the 1st. Take some time, ladies and gentlemen, to make sure we memorize these monarchs, okay? If you're unfamiliar with Roman numerals, okay, try to practice using Roman numerals, understanding the different Roman numerals for these monarchs, okay? And for all the monarchs that we're going to be discussing, okay? So Henry VII, Henry VIII, Edward VI, Mary the First, Elizabeth the First, okay? All right, let's focus on Henry VII. I mentioned him before during the Renaissance and how he is one of those early monarchs with Ferdinand and Isabella and some of the Valois monarchs in France of consolidating power, gaining power, okay, within this space of the Black Death, the 100 Years' War, okay, and the decline of the church. All right, he brought peace to England after they were involved in the wars of the 100 Years' War against the French, and he is the monarch who came out victorious, okay, the figure who came out victorious with this English Civil War known as the War of Roses, with the Yorks versus Lancasters. He was part of the Lancaster family, okay? And during this time, he's going to help facilitate peace after this by marrying a York. And so we can see the new Tudor kind of crest, all right, is this, a mixing of the York and Lancaster crests, okay? With this new, and that's kind of the new symbol of the Tudors. All right, so you have kind of the rose of the Lancaster, that red, more red, or not necessarily a rose, but the red flower, the white flower. I guess it could be roses. I'm not too sure. They merge together to create the Tudors because he does marry a York. All right, he was supported by the lower and middle classes. Okay. And he saved lots of money, and he's going to give it to his son, okay, and his sons when they would become king. Okay, let's kind of get into this arranged marriage because this is where things really start to get a little complicated. All right, so Henry VII's oldest son, Arthur, married Catherine of Aragon. This is Ferdinand and Isabella's daughter. Now, y'all might be like, whoa, Harv, dude, we got this crazy family tree. We're going to go over the family tree, okay? Ferdinand and Isabella did have children. We've talked about one of their children before. That was Joanna. She married the HRE emperor, and they had Charles V. And we've been talking about Charles V in his conflict with Martin Luther, okay? So Arthur, okay, Henry VII's son, is married to Catherine of Aragon. This is Ferdinand and Isabella's daughter, all right? But Arthur's going to die, all right? So Henry VIII is now, okay, the next to kind of take over, and he is going to be kind of pressured and forced by his father's court, all right, by his father to marry Catherine of Aragon, okay, his dead brother's wife, okay, and there's a lot at stake with this marriage, all right. This is for a Spain and English alliance. There was already a contract signed, okay, so Henry VIII is going to be put under this tremendous social, political, economic pressure, familial pressure, all right, to marry Catherine of Aragon, and he is going to marry her. All right, now, and church law even forbade this, all right, but Henry VII is going to kind of be like, hey, Pope, can you do me a favor, hook it up a little bit, and the Pope is going to grant this, all right, but, this was very important for both England, very important for Spain, okay, and Henry VIII is going to be forced to marry Catherine of Aragon, okay. So he took over the monarchy. This is Henry VIII, okay, when he was about 18 years old, okay, and he married Catherine of Aragon, who was a little bit older than him, okay, and Henry VIII was very much a Renaissance man, okay, he was very well-rounded. He liked to play tennis, okay, he was a writer, he was very much an intellectual, he was a hunter, he was a dancer, he loved music, he loved to write music, okay, he loved astronomy. He used to wake up his friend, Sir Thomas More, I talked about him in the Northern Renaissance, to just watch the stars, okay? And he was also a very, 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 very strong Catholic. Let's make sure we have that in our notes. We highlight that in our notes. Really important, okay? He even published a defense of the Seven Sacraments against Martin Luther and Protestantism, okay? Very good Catholic, okay? A Renaissance man, well-educated, okay? Let's continue. And there he is. Okay, there he is. All right, but Henry had a problem with his marriage. They were married for about 10 years, and some problems began to kind of infiltrate their marriage. Number one is the alliance between Spain and England began to deteriorate and was not very popular. But the big thing that was a really tough problem for their marriage was that Henry wanted a male heir, and they could not produce a male heir, okay? At this time, women were not necessarily allowed to rule alone, and you might be asking me, wait, Harv, hold up. We're going to see some monarchs some women like Mary and Elizabeth, and especially Elizabeth's going to rule alone. We'll see that kind of change. Okay, and we'll see kind of a loophole within that. But they for Henry VIII and Catherine, they had 6 children. Only one lived, and that is going to be Mary. All right, and they weren't even sure that she was going to survive. So there's a big problem in that Henry needs a son. Okay, and Catherine, he has not been able to have a son with Catherine. Okay, so at this, during this time, Henry was having an affair with Anne Boleyn. Okay, she was about 20 years old, and she wanted to be queen. Okay, but and the problem with that, kind of this problem that Henry had, is that if he had a son with her while not being married to Anne Boleyn, not being married to her, okay, the that son would not count as a successor. So Henry needed to get a divorce from Catherine so he could marry Anne Boleyn in case they did have a son. Okay, so he needs a divorce, and this is where we're going to see the Catholic Church kind of come in. Okay, so Henry was in his 30s, Catherine was in her 40s. Okay, Henry was also haunted by this line in the Bible that stated, like, if you marry your dead brother's wife, you would die childless. Okay, he's very, very much superstitious about this. All right, and the Pope, and Henry is asking the Pope, hey, I need a divorce. I need to divorce Catherine. I want to marry Anne Boleyn, and we are going to try to have a male heir. All right, and the Pope at this time, okay, Clement, you don't necessarily need to know him. All right, he's going to delay this decision. Okay, he wanted to say no, but he was kind of buying time. Let's think about what's going on. Let's think about why the Pope might be trying to delay this decision and also say no. Okay, well, part of the reason is that Martin Luther was, Protestantism was going on during this time, and that was definitely the Pope's major concern. Okay, he was very worried about Protestantism, very worried about a split of Christianity within Europe. Right. Another problem, okay, is that Catherine of Aragon was the aunt of Charles V. Remember, Charles V, okay, is the daughter of Joanna, who is Catherine's sister. Remember, Ferdinand and Isabella have multiple kids. 2 of those kids are Joanna and Catherine. Joanna is the mom of Charles V. I will give you all, don't worry, we will go through the family tree. I know it could be confusing. Y'all are probably looking at like, wait, the aunts, uncles, grandparents. Don't worry too much about this, but we'll kind of break that down a little bit further in the future when we review. But Catherine of Aragon was the aunt of Charles V, arguably the most powerful person in Europe, very much a strong Catholic, okay? The Pope does not want to anger him, okay? Because Charles V is his key ally in stopping Martin Luther and Protestantism, okay? He definitely doesn't want to upset Charles, by granting this divorce, okay? However, the Pope is delaying the decision. Henry's going to grow impatient, all right? And he is going to make his own decision, all right? So Henry wanted the Pope to declare the marriage annulled, okay, and just stop the marriage, okay? It no longer exists, okay? And that would make Mary illegitimate. So if he did have a son, that son could take the throne, okay? Laws are going to be passed allowing Henry to cut taxes owed to Rome if the Pope did not grant this divorce. But eventually, the Archbishop of England is going to die. Henry's going to grant and name his own. Okay, he's going to name the new one. This is going to be Thomas Cranmer. All right, and he is going to grant Henry his divorce, and he is also going to start fining, okay, the English clergy unless they recognize Henry as the head of this new Church of England. All right, now y'all might be like, wait, there's a new church? Yes, Henry is going to create his own church. He's going to be like, well, we don't belong to the Catholic Church anymore, so you don't have authority over us. He's going to create his own church so he can kind of control and not have to go through this problem again. Okay, kind of separate from the church, creates his own church so he can get this divorce, control religious matters in England. Okay, so he doesn't have to even talk to the Pope. He doesn't even have to communicate with him. He makes his own decisions. Okay, so Henry now has this new church. All right, let's kind of go back in history a little bit. Okay. Well, we are going back in history, but let's talk about this a little bit further, okay? A lot of people were opposed to this, okay, because they like Catherine, all right? Henry's going to marry Anne in 1533, but also people like his good friend, Thomas More, all right, were like appalled by this because, remember, Henry's a good Catholic, and they're saying like, dude, Henry, Protestant Reformation is going off. Martin Luther's going off. The Pope needs allies. We need to help to save Catholicism. What are you doing? And we're going to see Henry just turn and kill Thomas More and say, hey, dude, I'm doing what I need to do in order to, make sure that my family survives and succeeds and has the throne, okay? So Henry really just is kind of doing his own thing, all right? So he's going to marry Anne. She gives birth, okay, in 1533, and this is going to be Elizabeth. So we've had two girls so far, Mary with Catherine, and with Anne, it's Elizabeth. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, you don't need to memorize all this information, okay? Big ideas here, all right? Henry will be excommunicated from the church, much like Martin Luther, but Henry, he's got his own church now, all right? And remember, that's a big deal to be excommunicated because you can't go to heaven. But Henry has made his decision and has this new Church of England. Okay, so Henry is going to pass laws, and let's talk about some of the important laws, and let's talk about this new Church of England under Henry. Okay, so he's going to pass laws to make his divorce legal. All right, he's going to start closing monasteries. He's going to start taking church lands, sell them. All right. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is an important law because this helps facilitate the creation of this new Anglican, Church of England. We have a new Protestant religion that is now out there, It is called Anglicanism. This is the Church of England, And this 1534 Act of Supremacy declares Henry the head of this new Church of England. So this is a divergence, from the Catholic Church, The Catholic Church. The Pope is the head of the Catholic Church. Well, we have a new church where the king is the head of the church. That's the Church of England. The king is the head of this church, And check this out. In order to get a government job, you had to accept the marriage, and you had to accept Henry as the head of the church. All right, now, this new Church of England was actually very similar to the Catholic Church. Remember, Henry was a good Catholic. He disagreed with Martin Luther. Remember, he had a defense of the seven sacraments. He was very much a good Catholic, So Henry's Anglican Church is going to be very Catholic-y, very, very similar to Catholicism. There'll be some differences. For example, the church service and Bible are now in English, And the king is now the head of the Pope. The king is now the head of the church, not the Pope. All right, but he does maintain some Catholic practices, some ceremonies. He does maintain the belief in seven sacraments, the idea of transubstantiation. So there's a lot of Catholicism within his church, which is important for us because when we start to discuss some of the other monarchs, like Edward VI, like Mary, like Elizabeth, we're going to see a difference. Okay? And there he is, right? There he is, Henry VIII. All right, let's continue. All right, did he ever get that boy? The answer will be yes, But in 1534, he also passed this Act of Succession, all right, and it stated that all children under Anne would be the next monarchs, and that made Mary illegitimate. However, that's going to kind of backfire on him because he has another girl with Anne, which is Elizabeth, So that law is really Henry's going to have to ignore that later, but his Act of Supremacy, Act of Succession, really important. Let's talk about all of his wives, Oh, darn, the picture is not showing up fully with Catherine of Aragon. I'll have to fix that. But his first wife was Catherine of Aragon. She gave birth to 6 children. Only one lived. That's Mary. The second child was Anne Boleyn, who gave birth to Elizabeth, all right, later known as Elizabeth I, and she was accused of adultery, cheating on Henry, which was that was not true. She did not cheat on him, but she's going to be killed and beheaded. The third wife will be Jane Seymour. She gave birth to Edward VI. That will be his male heir. And Jane will die. In childbirth. We have Anne of Cleves. This was a marriage supposed to create an alliance with Germany. All right, the HRE. He was shown a portrait that was inaccurate, and he divorced her right away because he thought when he saw her, because he thought she was unattractive. In my previous year class, it was almost like the students were saying that he got catfished, all right? And she was given land and money to leave the marriage. All right. His next wife was Catherine Howard. She was accused of cheating on Henry VIII and beheaded. They had no children. Okay. And I believe his last wife, okay, this is Catherine Parr. Yes, it was his last wife. Okay, she outlived Henry. Okay, and she was really more of a nurse than a wife. Okay, and she was actually in love with another man. But she kind of took care of Henry during his later years. Okay. All right, let's stop here for today. I'm going to discuss the rest of the Tudors, ladies and gentlemen, and some of the important events surrounding them during this continuing English Reformation. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a fantastic rest of the day.